Sean O'Connell, Evan Moore, and we're joined now by Paul Alexander, former NFL offensive line coach, at Coach Paul Alex on the old tweet machine. He's worked with Walker Little, Penei Sewell, etc., and he joins us to lend some perspective. Paul, how are you?
Good. How are you guys doing? You got a good groove there with your intro music.
Yeah, Dan, our producer, he's also half a DJ. On the weekends, he does weddings and stuff like that. So he's got a good ear for the music.
Yeah, very West Coast-ish. Yeah,
Coach, I'm not gonna lie. I think that I've got a good handle on the Penei Sewell hype, but also I do a daily show with Jeff Schwartz, who is the biggest Penei Sewell homer on planet Earth, and may have brainwashed me into believing this kid is a generational talent and a 10-year starter in the NFL, and he played the position himself, so I tend to listen to him. I'm glad we get a third-party opinion here. Tell me what you think of Penei Sewell, the former Outland Trophy winner from the University of Oregon.
Well, you've been hearing about him for a long time, and probably the biggest reason you've heard about him is Pro Football Focus grades all these guys, and even since he was a freshman, his career Pro Football Focus production grade is the highest they've ever given an offensive lineman. All right, so and you've heard about this. You've heard about here's this freshman year that's blocking everybody. All right, and so he's been known for so long. All right, and then when I went and worked with Penei out in Southern California, I probably worked with him 6 days, and I'm rushing him, and he punched me so hard that I'm not kidding you. I had a bruise in my chest for a month. All right, it wouldn't go away, in fact, and then he hit me again there, and I'm holding the bag. And at one point I said, damn it, Payne, would you hit the bag for God's sake? And anyway, so he was a guy, let me put it this way. I worked against these guys my whole life. I'm not afraid to run into them with a bag because, you learn how to do it. But when I was standing across from him, I did not want to go run into him. And I was kind of pulling up a little bit sooner than I usually do against most people. So he has that to him. What is that? He has that physical dominant presence where he just can, such rare physical stature to him.
Yeah, Sean, I think what Paul also is referring to is like when these linemen are heavy-handed, like all they do is just put their hands on you and it hurts. They're not even trying to hit you. Yeah. They just set their hands on you and you're like, good Lord, your hands are heavy, right? Which always helps. But Paul, now, the other thing,
heavy hands, he's got big bones, and I was surprised looking at him because he doesn't look like, he doesn't have the height, the range like, Ogden had or Case had, or you name it. I heard you use the word generational player. He doesn't have that frame of those guys. He's a little wider. And but the thing that surprised me when he recovered and he moved and he changed direction, he did it with exceptional quickness, and it really surprised me.
So, Paul, the other thing that I hear a lot about Penei Sewell, given that he's 20 years old. And because people are looking for holes somewhere, right? There's no such thing as a perfect player. So where are the holes? And one of the things I hear about Penei is, okay, he's 20 years old, right? He's really young still, right? Still growing into his body. And because of his athleticism, maybe he's not strong enough, right? And so maybe he's not weight room strong like a lot of guys we see in the NFL, especially offensive linemen. But what I see is a ton of functional strength, right? So that explosiveness off the line of scrimmage where he can run guys over, that comes from just how quick and explosive he is. So do you agree with that if there is a knock on him, that maybe he could add strength, or do you see there to be sufficient strength there and that not really a concern at this point?
Oh, he's going to get stronger for sure. I would advise the listeners that anyone that you hear on the airwaves say that Penei Sewell is not strong enough, change the channel immediately, right? Because the person who's saying that on the radio has no idea what he's talking about. My chest knows. Trust me, he's strong enough.
Coach, we make a big deal when even great players are transitioning from high school to Division I college football about how hard that jump is and how physically your body's got to be ready for it, mentally you've got to be ready for it, your maturity, all of that stuff. What is it an equal jump or an even greater jump when you're talking about offensive linemen specifically going from even high-level college football into the NFL?
I think there's an issue going from high school to college. And, when you're talking 18, there's probably a bigger gap in terms of physical maturity there. But
sure.
The jump from college to pro football is a difference in the technical maturity. The technical maturity is so refined and so polished, and the systems of football are so sophisticated. It's like nothing that they're ever used to. It's more similar high school to college in terms of sophistication of football because, high school and college kids go to class and they have lives other than football, right? When you go to pro football, that's all you do. And you put a bunch of coaches together where they've got guys that all they're going to do is work every day on football. Well, they'll come up with a lot of sophisticating things, and so that is to me the biggest jump because their mind is working harder because of the sophistication of the systems, and the speed of the guys they're going against is not what they're used to. And when you put those things together, young guys have a hard time.
Paul, one of the other Pac-12 guys that has gotten quite a bit of attention after this season who elected to opt in and play in 2020 and I think really helped himself is Elijah Vera Tucker out of USC. Obviously spent most of the season playing tackle, but has shown a lot of versatility over the course of his college career to play both tackle and guard. And I think sometimes for fans that guard-tackle idea is a little bit confusing where why are some tackles able to play guard and others aren't? Can you provide some clarity on that and then let us know ultimately where you think Elijah Vera Tucker ends up in the NFL?
Yeah, I think tackles are usually taller. Guards are usually wider. Tackles' arms are long. Guards' arms don't need to be long. The center of gravity is a little bit higher for tackles. It's lower for guards. There's height is important, reach is important for tackles, all right? And I see Vera Tucker myself. I see him as a guard. I did not work with him. He's one of the. I worked with 25 of the guys that will be drafted, and I worked with all but one, all of the top 3-round tackles that will be drafted. And early on, so many scouts had told me when I was putting my trips together that he was a guard. So I really didn't even put him on my tackle list. Now I'm hearing now that some people think he's a guard and so forth, and there you go. So I think the arm reach is an issue. I think his body, it just looks longer. It should look longer as a tackle. I think he's going to be a terrific guard. I've watched him on film. He's got great quickness. He's got change of direction. He's got acceleration. He's got toughness. He's got all the traits you're looking for. And could he play tackle? I mean, someone's got to play tackle. You know what I mean? But what's his best position? I think his best position is guard. A guy asked me. A draftnik asked me, not long ago. He said, well, how can you tell the difference between a tackle and a guard? I said to him, you know what a duck looks like? He said, yeah. I said, well, if a goose was standing in front of you, would you say, look at the duck? No, you'd say, well,
I'm going to remember that one.
My whole life, I've been looking at tackles. I've been looking at guards, and you look like a guard. You look like a tackle. You know?
Paul, Sean, real quick, if I could follow that up real quick to Paul. Paul, so the other thing that's become seemingly conventional wisdom about the two positions is that teams aren't willing to step up and take guards consistently as high. There's been some exceptions, right? Like there's some really good guards out there. Obviously, the Colts have a great one from Notre Dame. But as a coach for you, do you buy into that? Do you put as much value for a really good guard as you would for a really good tackle, or is everybody right in thinking that tackles just are more valuable?
Well, when you look at it statistically over time, which I did, and I would do the research every year for close to my 30 years in the National Football League, on average, over time, one guard gets drafted in the first round a year. on average, one center gets drafted in the first round. On average, 4 offensive tackles get drafted. All right, and that's over time. That's what it's been. So do people draft? Tackles are the premium. Tackles are the spot where there just aren't enough big men that are 300 pounds, 6'5", 33+ inch long arms, athletics to block speed, strength to block power. They're blocking guys that are farther away than the guard is, which makes it harder. The requirements, the physical requirements for a tackle, there just aren't enough people in the world like that. So you grab the tackles when you can, because if you don't grab them early, the odds of getting one later are virtually non-existent. Now Pro Bowls have been filled with more guards that were later round picks than tackles, of course. And so that's why tackles get picked more. Now, let me say something else. I think people make a mistake when they take a tackle saying, let's take a flyer on this guy. We need a tackle. There's nobody left. We got to have one. And they pass up a guy that they know is going to be a really good guard. So you don't want to do that. When there's a significant difference that way, take the better player.
That's good.
Before we let you go, I got to ask you about a player who's so intriguing to me, not only because of his talent, but because of the choice he made to not play this last year during the pandemic-shortened season in the Pac-12 Conference. And I think you've worked with Walker Little, who was one of the most hyped high school prospects at the offensive line position. Big get for Stanford. Great player. Unfortunately dealt with injuries. And now we kind of don't know where to put him in the upcoming draft because his physical profile, the one you were just talking about, big athletic guy, long arms, strength, speed, grace, all of it. Where does he end up and where do you see him fitting?
Well, I know Walker very well. I've been working with him for 2 years, really. And I've probably spent this off season 10 or 12 days with him. So I know him as well as anybody knows him. Saying that, I'm more confused on the public perception of Walker Little than maybe I can ever remember on any player. Because when I look at him and I work with him, every single time he does something, my eyes say first-round pick. First-round pick. He's got it all. I mean, what doesn't he have? He's got the height, he's got the reach, he's got the athleticism, he's got the size, he's got the strength. He certainly has the brain, the awareness, the competitiveness. And it's like, what doesn't this guy have? I was sitting here on my phone and I saw Sporting News put out their top 7 round picks, and they had Walker, and I'm scrolling through, and they got Walker Little in the 4th round. I'm like, what are you people drinking? I don't know. I mean, we
got to get you out there more, Paul. We got to get you on ESPN to talk about this, man. Get this opinion out there more.
Oh, I do the Sirius NFL show every Monday with Jim and Pat on Moving the Chains, and I told them on Walker Little, I said, I really believe this. Any scout that watches film of Walker Little and doesn't see first-round pick should be fired.
Yeah,
it's impossible not to see first-round pick. So I'm confused beyond belief. Now,
wait, Paul, are you saying you see first-round pick, but do you also think he should be drafted in the first round based on the fact we haven't seen him much the last 2 years? Or are you just saying that's what his potential is?
If I were coaching today, I'd draft him in the first round.
Interesting. Wow. I feel that way about Davis Mills, too.
There's 4 or 5. This draft, everyone says, is a great tackle draft. To me, this draft is a great guard draft, and it's a great middle-round center draft. I think there's 4, maybe 5 guys who can start at left tackle in the National Football League in this draft. Now, someone's going to slip through that we don't know about, and someone's going to bust out that we didn't anticipate. But of those 4 or 5 guys who can start at left tackle in the National Football League, Walker Little's one of them. I would draft him in the first round, and I would put him in day 1, and you're my left tackle. That's how highly I think of the guy. I don't know what else I can say, but I just don't understand.
There's probably a team out there that is thinking the same thing you are. They'd like to keep their love for him down so they can maybe get him at the end of the second or something like that instead of having to take a first-round pick on him. But I made this comment yesterday, too, that if we're talking, 2 years ago, if you told me we're going to be talking about Pac-12 offensive linemen that could go in the first round, so obviously Penei Sewell would have been in that discussion, Elijah Vera Tucker, and then I'd have told you you're crazy if you don't think we're going to be talking about Walker Little. And
let me tell you what I did. Let me tell you what I did. 2 years ago, I was asked by an agent to watch all the top guys, because Walker was thinking about coming out for last year's draft. And when I finished all those top guys, now I hadn't watched Becton at that time because I did this like after the year in advance of this, you know what I mean? So it was an early observation. But when I watched all these top guys, I said, okay, the first lineman drafted is going to be either Andrew Thomas or Walker Little. That's how I saw it. That's how I compared him to those guys. And then, okay, well, he got he got hurt, and then he didn't play the year, and then he sat out this year, and all this kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, I got to have a guy that can block Chase Young. I mean, and I don't care if Walker Little sat out this year or not. I mean, Walker Little sitting out a year has a better chance of blocking Chase Young than some of these other guys that. A writer who covers the Chargers for Sports Illustrated, he was like, should they take? It was like they better take some. They better protect that quarterback. Yeah. I see the Chargers. Yeah. Oh, maybe they'll take a receiver, give weapons. And I go, no, you can't let what happened to Carr, to Andrew Luck, to Joe Burrow. You got a great quarterback. You got to protect that guy, and.
You won't get any disagreement from us, Paul. That is, wow. You gave us a lot to chew on there. We thank you so much for your time, and enjoy the draft.
I will. No pressure on me now.
Paul Alexander, O-line focus, former NFL offensive line coach. We got to talk about what he said about Walker Little when we come back on Pac-12 Today. Short on the music there. Sean O'Connell, Evan Moore, Pac-12 Today. Threw me off a little bit, DJ Dan. Mark Schofield, USA Today NFL Draft Insider, is going to join us at the top of hour number 2, which is only 5 minutes away. Look, we just had Paul Alexander, former NFL offensive line coach and scout, on. And, of course, he had high praise for Penei Sewell. But he also said Walker Little is a first-round draft talent. But, Evan, the crux of everything here is that you might be able to get that guy in the 3rd or 4th round, talent be damned, just because of the way that, people don't have film on him.
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? If you feel that strongly, like if Paul Alexander was still with an NFL team and he had spoken to his GM and they all agreed that, yeah, this is a first-round talent, then you start to get a little concerned. It's kind of like the prisoner's dilemma, right? Like, what's the other team going to do? Game theory, like, well, I don't know, like, are they going to wait to the 3rd round, or are we going to miss him if we don't take him early in the 2nd round or early to mid-2nd round, right? I don't know. I'm kind of the mindset, Sean, that if there's a guy you feel really strongly about, you go get him, right? Now, people might call you an idiot for going after a guy in the 1st round that could have probably been had in the 2nd or 3rd round. It's not the first time we've seen that happen. A lot of people felt like Jalen Hurts when Philly took him could have been had a lot later than when they took him.
Yeah.
But if you feel strongly about a guy and you think he's going to be an all-pro performer, those are the kind of guys you go for in the 1st round. So time will tell, and you're going to be getting the last laugh if Walker Little ends up being a perennial Pro Bowler, right? And there's a lot of people that feel that way. I mean, that's how talented he is.
And the crazy thing about it is, right, like, you might be able to draft that in the 3rd round, but it's worth it if you draft him in the 1st round, and that's what his career looks like. So just bananas. Mark Schofield joins us next to take a look at the draft.